Hey guys, I'm Tara. I came across a quote on the internet recently that captivated me, and I want to share it with you today. And it's weird, so you've been warned. It goes like this. You are a ghost, driving a meat-covered skeleton made of stardust, riding a rock that is hurtling through space. Fear nothing. Now, I told you it was weird, right? No one seems to know who said this, but I love this quote because to me this quote is something like the beginner's guide to the human soul. This one line has a through line from like soul and spirit to the physical body, to the laws of the universe, to our fears and emotions and actions. And I think that this is super timely right now because I think what I hear a lot of is people experiencing deep soul level disturbance and fear. We live in what most people think of as troubled times. And I was taught that in troubled times, it's our job to stand up and show our souls. My teacher, Clarissa Pinkola Estes, writes that soul on deck shines like gold in troubled times. And soul on deck sends out sparks of light that just help sort of other struggling souls out there collaborate and conspire to make proper matters, things that are really important, catch fire. And I always have found that concept to be so galvanizing and so beautiful, but I do disagree with her on one point, that these are troubled times. I pride myself on being a spiritual contrarian. So I know that most people think that the world is a dumpster fire right now. I know that most people think humanity is totally devolving, but the truth is that this planet spins in perfection, the sun rises and falls, the plants and animals reproduce, and your heart continues to beat, whether or not you stay up all night with your mind racing because of worry, right? It's hard to believe this because we live in a time when we're bombarded with every bit of bad news that has happened to anyone, anywhere in this world in real time. And our brains and our souls are not equipped to keep up with that. The truth is that there is an order of magnitude more of brilliant news, good news happening around us all the time, but we don't hear about it the same way. Another one of my teachers says that if the media reports were actually reported in proportion to the cadence at which good and bad news actually happen, one time a day, there would be this swoosh on the screen so fast that we couldn't even read it. And that would be the bad news. The sun rises and falls every day. This is really big, good news. The rock that we're all riding continues to hurtle through space without us doing anything to make that happen. This is really big, good news. But it doesn't change the fact that so many souls are troubled. And this is very understandable. This has become the subject of my life's work. I am, as they said, a marketer turned entrepreneur. I only work on transformational businesses. I only work on things that help people live healthier, wealthier, and wiser lives. I have worked on some of the biggest real estate, health, wellness, and media brands in the world. But I realized very recently that my entire career had been a little bit of a fraud. I was doing a bunch of what Steve Jobs called head faking. I was using all of these topics and brands and businesses to answer people's deep soul level SOSs, to send them secret messages, to lift them up. It was a little like, okay, you wanna lose weight? Great, I'll talk to you about losing weight. And then I'm gonna secretly sneak in all these messages about radical self-acceptance and about how deeply worthy of love you actually are. Because those things are the basis of weight loss, but they are also the basis of deep well-being and deep joy. So the older I get, the bolder I get, the more transparent I get and about bringing 100% of who I am and what I'm here for to work. So now I just work directly on the issue that I care the most about, which is the well-being of our souls. No big deal, right? The interesting thing about the soul is that we all have one, but almost no one knows much about the human soul, and we kind of need to know something about the soul to be able to care for it and experience its deepest levels of well-being. So, I want to share with you a little bit about how I think the human soul works, And then I want to walk through sort of a hit list of what I think of as the practices of personal disruption, which is to say the practices that you can develop to release internal resistance to your soul's default state, which is a state of constant expansion and constant well-being. All right, so in 4 or 5 minutes, we're going to talk about how the soul works. Here's what I think it looks like. I believe that we are all born perfect. We are created in the image of the divine. It doesn't matter if you are born with what someone thinks of as a defect or disease. You are born perfect. But the moment that we start understanding symbols and language, this process starts that Don Miguel Ruiz calls the domestication of humans, right? We are taught that we are good if we do X and bad if we do Y, that we are good if we have a certain body shape or a certain amount of money or a certain skin color, and bad if we don't. And these are lies. Because we are good, period. We are good regardless of whether we perform or conform. But over a lifetime, through a life of traumas and challenges and experiences and triumphs even, we take on and start to believe a version of reality that is based on these lies. And this sounds terrible, but it's not entirely bad, because every one of these experiences plants sort of hidden treasures deep within us. It plants dreams and desires, things we would like to see be different about the world, things we would like to help make be different about the world, things we get more and more clarity over this lifetime of the things that we don't like, which is the same as clarity about the things that we do like and who we actually really are and what we're really here to do. So for some of us, something will happen that sparks a shift. And we begin to question whether the lies were true. We get glimpses that, wait a second, maybe we really are truly deeply worthy. Maybe we are truly deeply powerful, truly deeply okay. And through more life experience and more learning, we start this process of peeling away the lies. Peeling away the lies. And what lies beneath is not just the perfection and the worthiness with which we were born, but it, by that time, has been burnished and honed and enhanced and clarified by this lifetime process of coming under and then coming out from under all of the lies. Our souls evolve, these sorts of shifts happen, we start to shed these lies over a lifetime of everyday moments, transition seasons, and longer-term odysseys, cycles in which we move beyond fear and toward more clarity and more meaning. One of my teachers, Esther Hicks, says, you can never get it done. You will never get it done. But fortunately, you also can't get it wrong, right? So once you know that, you can kind of let yourself off the perfectionist hook and just start enjoying these odysseys, enjoying these cycles of getting clearer and clearer on who you really are and what you're really here for, because that's really just the same thing as living an ever more awakened life. So now I want to share with you a handful of practices for starting to make these shifts in your soul and keeping your soul unstuck. The first set of them is a body of sort of mindset practices, habits for thinking. They're called the 4 agreements. Has anyone heard of the 4 agreements or know the 4 agreements? Awesome. You guys are my people right here in this little row. I do joke all the time that my personal brand, because I'm a marketer, is Sexy Black Church Lady. So I'd love to have a little two-way audience participation. The first agreement, we're going to go through these really fast. I'd so strongly recommend that you read The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. But the first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. And that does not just mean to do what you say you will do. It means to understand deeply the power of your words to bless or curse the people around you and to bless or curse yourself. And then once you understand that power, to use it only in the direction of light and of love. Now, Don Miguel Ruiz says that this one agreement on its own, if you practice it, causes transcendence. It can shift you into a level of existence that he calls heaven on earth. The second and third agreement are to never make assumptions and to never take anything personally. Because nothing anyone else ever says or does is actually about you. Every single human being is operating on this sort of experience and understanding of the planet that comes from their beliefs, the lies they've been taught, the truths that they've found. So don't take anything anyone else does personally, even if they say it's personally directed to you. And learn how to have hard conversations. Learn how to ask for clarification instead of making assumptions. Now, the second and third agreements eliminate almost all of the interpersonal drama we ever experience in this life. And the final agreement sounds simple, but is sometimes hard, which is to do your best, to always do your best. This is the regret prevention agreement. And to understand that your best will look different on different days. When you're sick, your best looks really different than when you're very well. So practicing these agreements is how you get the energy and the boldness and the freedom from cultural conditioning to make any shift you ever need to make in your life. The second practice I'll just touch on really quickly, and it's to mind your own business. The second practice is to mind your own business and to understand that your business is your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions, and that is it. When we focus on judging what other people's behavior is, we do two things. One, we try to do the impossible, which is control something that's out of our control. And two, we create a lot of internal turbulence in our systems. So the second practice is simple, it's just to mind your own business. The third practice is morning ritual. So I really so strongly encourage you to invest time every single day of this life doing things that make you feel good for no other reason than that they make you feel good. Learn to start the day with a morning ritual that you make up. Your ritual doesn't have to look like my ritual. I get up every day and I do some combination of things. I drink a cup of green tea, I listen to something inspirational, ideally in the hot tub, I walk my dogs, I do some free writing, I read a little bit of something that makes me feel really expansive, and then I sit for 15 or 20 minutes, and I let my mind just get quiet and still. And yes, I get up very early to be able to do all those things, but the peace and the flow and the ease with which I experience the rest of every single day of my life is so worth it. It's so worth it. And it's really just a habit, like any other habit. You can develop it with practice. So I just said your ritual practice doesn't have to look like mine, but I've been on this thing I call my soul tour, where I'm interviewing all kinds of people to understand how they experience soul and bring the sacred into their everyday lives. And the people that I have talked to who live very soulful lives consistently report that they have some sort of practice of these three things that I want to share with you. The first is sitting. I call it sitting because I feel like the word meditation has gotten so loaded with stuff for people. I have heard probably 3 or 4 people now talk about their meditation anxiety, which is like the opposite of the point. So I'm just going to call it sitting. And instead of getting like all worked up about whether you're doing it right, I'm going to suggest this. Anyone can sit in a chair quietly for 5 minutes a day for at least 5 days. So try that. Sit in a chair, be still, 5 minutes a day, 5 days. That's it. And then writing, expressive writing. So you'll hear this called free writing, morning pages, journaling. There's all kinds of systems for doing it. Some people say you have to do it longhand for it to work. Some people say 3 pages a day or 750 words a day. What I think is really important is that you just allow whatever is in your brain to flow on the page without editing, without it even trying to make it be good writing, without it ever being something that you plan to show anyone else. I mean, just write what comes out of your head. You will find this practice to be what I have found, which is an emotional windshield wiper. Julia Cameron calls it a spiritual windshield wiper, and you have access to it every day. And you'll also just find yourself feeling and thinking and expressing yourself so much more clearly every day of your life in every other context of your life. And then the final part is expansive reading. So by that I mean just reading something that really resonates for you, something every day. It could be one sentence, it could be one page, it could be one chapter. It could be, I read wisdom literature. It could be sci-fi, it doesn't matter, right? The idea is you just need to read something that feels expansive to you, something that resonates. And you'll know when you read something like that because you feel like a little shift in your body. You feel like something opens a little inside. The people that have written things that you find really resonate for you, I encourage you to think of as your teachers. Think of them as your patron saints. The people I've called my teachers today, I have not met any of them, ever. I have one I will meet in a couple weeks, which is exciting, but most of them I have never met. But I have studied their work, I have adopted it and integrated it into who I am, and I've received it in the spirit they offered it. Their offering of it was part of their calling, right? So receive it and claim it. But to receive it, you have to be in the practice of reading something every day that floats your boat. So get in that practice. And the final set of practices for personal disruption is to stop trying to force things to happen. Learn to relax. And this is like, I am a super recovering type A, guys. Like, I used to be a lawyer. I will just say that. Let's keep that in the room. Learn to relax and focus on these other practices and just focus on them as a practice without an expectation as to outcome. Get out of the business of nose to grindstone. Get out of this, stop saying the struggle is real. The struggle does not have to be that real. Stop saying you're aiming for world domination. That's not even something we should want to do. As you write and you do these practices, as you reflect, as you sit still, as you practice minding your own business, as you practice the 4 agreements, you'll start to connect dots. And you might realize what I realized, which was that as hard as I had been nose to grindstoning it for a whole lifetime, all of the very best things that had ever happened to me in my life happened in that space of me just feeling good and being open and being receptive. You can actually get a lot of things done with nose to grindstone action, but you can create much more impact on the world and have much more joy in your life if you stay out of struggle mode, release the internal resistance to who you really are, and just get in that mode where you're allowing inspiration to constantly flow and direct what your actions are. So, the next time you find yourself in a dark night of the soul or in a beautiful dawn of the soul, I want you to remember our beginner's guide to the soul, the quote we started with. You are a ghost. You are soul and spirit, and you have access to limitless energy and creative power. You don't have to do anything or perform or be anything other than what you are to access that power. It is your divine birthright. You're driving a meat-covered skeleton made of stardust. For these precious decades of this life, you are a spiritual being, but you are in a physical body, and it is a miraculous, miraculous contraption. We are all riding this rock that is hurtling through space, and thank goodness, well-being is the dominant order of this universe. And again, you don't have to do anything or perform anything to access that, just receive it. So fear nothing. And force nothing. Just relax and be gentle and easy with yourself as you try on these practices for receiving the full measure of joy and love and well-being that I know for sure is your divine inheritance. Thank you.